first, and he goes, I'm sure it's going to be archived. I said, yeah, I'm sure it will.
I'm going to go show him that it's on.
Say it's on, the pressure's on.
So do a hand off and off.
You're on it right now. So, like, when I come up, can I just go underneath it? You're fine. No, but you just walk right after that. Okay. Right, you're good.
Ladies and gentlemen, we trust that you have enjoyed your catered meal like leaders. This evening, we will induct 5 individuals and 1 team into the Watchdog Hall of Fame. Our Hall of Fame is established on the 4 pillars that encompass what it means to have the Watchdog experience. The 4 pillars are academics and achievement, fine arts, athletics, and distinguished service. To get to this evening, we received recommendations and nominations from the community. Then the nominating committee makes Hall of Fame recommendations to a steering committee. Then the steering committee representatives review and determine our Hall of Fame class. Each year, we induct individuals or teams who have demonstrated excellence in their pillar. At this time, we will begin our induction ceremony. And I would also like to welcome Beresford High School senior Macy Portier to the stage.
Thank you, Dr. Degan. Marvin Westell embodies the pillar of academics and achievement because of his commitment to lifelong learning, his ability to use his education to make a difference in the agricultural industry, and his ability to serve others. Dr. Westell inspires me to be a dedicated learner, a leader with my peers, someone who takes purposeful risks, and someone who gives back to the community. Dr. Westell, thank you for living to serve and bringing out the best in our youth through academic success and numerous achievements. Tonight, to share more about Dr. Marvin Westell is Mrs. Jerry Eide.
It is my honor and privilege to share a little bit about you, about your academic and achievement inductee. Marvin Westell is a 1959 Beresford graduate, was a 1959 State FFA Star Farmer, and the 1959-60 State FFA President. He founded and still operates Growmaster Inc. with his wife Kareem in Omaha, where they now call home. I met Marvin nearly 20 years ago at a State FFA convention where he addressed members, encouraged them to think big and grab opportunities. His enthusiasm, optimism, and servant heart were contagious. That was just the start of an amazing friendship. You see, Marvin doesn't walk away from something that he believes in, and he believes in FFA and honoring his upbringing. When we needed help with the South Dakota FFA building at the State Fair, he met the challenge and said, "Don't be afraid to think big, Jerry." He helped create a team to renovate the Ag Adventure Center and its mission, as well as fundraise to achieve the project. He led the South Dakota FFA alumni for several years, helped start local FFA alumni in numerous schools, including here in Beresford. He has conducted practice interviews with FFA members applying for office and star awards, and is visionary, looking to create an FFA Triple Crown Award at the state level for youth who excel in multiple areas of agricultural leadership. He embodies the line of the FFA motto that says, "Living to serve." He often describes himself as just a country bumpkin who started with nothing and was fortunate to do well in business. However, that's remarkably humble. He's a hard worker. He built Growmaster Inc., which provides swine producers around the world with proven systems and equipment to help meet annual increases in the global demand for pork. He continues to bring his expertise in nutrition, consultation, and formulas to livestock and poultry producers with innovative and cutting-edge technologies. He's patriotic, starting an Optimist program that puts out American flags curbside for holidays all over Omaha. He loves his wife, children, and grandchildren. He's an eternal optimist, a true gentleman, a loyal friend, and has the biggest heart. He embodies the pillar of academic and achievement. It is my honor to introduce to you and be the first to congratulate my friend, Mr. Marvin Westell.
Thank you, Mrs. Eide. Dr. Westell, please come forward and receive your watchdog. To present the watchdog is Beresford School Board President, Mrs. Deb Bergman.
Wow. It's kind of amazing to be standing here. Can everybody hear me okay? Yes, I consider myself a farm boy. A farm boy from Beresford, South Dakota. And this has always been, regardless of where we lived, home. This is where we started. Tonight I'd like to share with you a few thoughts about relationships and legacy. I want everybody here to know no man is an island. I'm here because of you people. I'm here because of the teachers that helped give me an influence in life and to look forward. So with that, I would like to put some slides on. And I truly mean, this is a real honor. And I want to talk to you about relationships and legacy. Because it's these relationships that make us. Give us the ability to help others. Give us the ability to grow. So I'd like to take you on a short journey. And I truly believe this. A journey in life are those people that come into our lives, most of them unexpected, that make a difference. That make a difference so that we, in turn, can reach out and make a difference in others. Relationship starts with our parents. And I'm very blessed that I had two excellent parents. What's amazing to me, as I step aside, each of my parents had an 8th grade education. There had been nobody in our family that had gone on to get a college degree. But relationships. I met Corinne 63 years ago on a blind date. She wasn't my date. But somehow she made an impression. And then later, we decided to become married and have 3 beautiful children. Very blessed. And each of those children had real wisdom in selecting their spouses. And we have 7 grandchildren as a result. But these 3 and their spouses represent all college graduates. One person, Andrea, my daughter, has got 2 master's degrees. She chose a husband, her shining knight, that's got his PhD. All of the rest of them have had their own specialties, which I'm very proud of. Our journey started here in Beresford. 1962, Crane and I left farming to go to that institution called the Jackrabbit Institution in Brookings. We were there 4 years, and then we migrated to Ames, Iowa. Spent another 4 years working on my PhD. Then we went on to Decatur, Indiana, which was my first job, working for Central Soya in the research group. From there we went to Dayton, Ohio. We were 4 years in Decatur, then went 4 years to Lansing, Michigan, then the record got break because it was 4 years Brookings, 4 years Ames, 4 years Decatur, and 4 years Lansing, Michigan. 1 year in Dayton, Ohio. Then we moved to Mayfield, Kentucky. Become involved with a 500 South farrow to finish operation plus a feed mill. 1982, we started Growmaster. But before we go there, the people that helped prepare for this mission in life was 2 teachers, and I had several very good ones, but Eldred Sheepman, I have the highest respect for him. He really made a difference. And then Mr. Sweely, he later told me that he would fall asleep listening to me practice speaking, public speaking, so I could hear the public speaking. I said, wow. But our classmates, they also had a real influence. They helped prepare for this journey that Queen and I were to embark upon. I've selected just a few of my classmates, but we had 49. Started out with 62, 49. Classmates really can make a difference in your life. But there's one special one. Jerry Berger. For any of us who think that we are having it tough in life, I encourage you to think about Jerry Berger. When he was a sophomore, his mother passed away. When he was a senior, he got called out of school. His dad had fallen from a silo and was killed. Jerry took over supporting his family, his sisters, brothers. In 1961, he finished harvesting. There was a corn stalk that was stuck, and he wanted to have it clean so he could put the corn picker away. It was still running. Caught him, pulled him into the snapping horse. He worked his shoe off to try to stop it. Got his second hand caught. But he always wore a smile. People, classmates that visited him, couldn't believe his positive. He went on to life, and later he had to have some heart surgery, and he had some valve replaced. And then during that operation, he discovered that he had cancer. And he fought through that cancer for 11 years. But Jerry, when he came back for a class reunion, still always wore a smile. What an inspiration. A motto that I learned as a freshman has always played a role in my life. Learning to do, doing to learn. Learning to live and living to serve. As I take this journey, I want to share with these how these play a role in our life. In education, first here in the high school, then on to SDSU, and then on to Iowa State. Learning to do. Then also doing to learn with the FFA, the activities, and then assistantship at South Dakota State, Iowa State, while I was getting my degree, to help learn what we needed to do. Earning to live. My first job was at Central Soya and a research specialist. But I got to meet so many farmers and producers across the U.S. Then I worked for Farm Bureau Services, and that was quite an experience in itself. Too long to share with you tonight, but we'll later. then on to Carl Akey. And then we started Growmaster Feed in Mayfield, Kentucky in 1982. As we started our company, I was working as a manufacturer's rep for Carl Akey, the company that I had been working for. And we increased the volume of business in 3 years from $1.6 million to $4.2 million in sales. As I started this company, I was working part-time for Mr. Akey and part-time starting our business. Our two oldest children decided that they definitely wanted to go into college, and so we supported that. Then one fall, in December, I get a phone call saying, "Marvin, we won't need your services anymore." 90% of our income was gone. But I believed in helping farmers, producers. And I would be sometimes gone from home 2 to 3 weeks at a time, while my wife was taking care of the shop and raising our third son, who was 19 years younger than our older son. But we grew. We learned that helping people is what this world is about. Because we can't do it alone. Two mentors that came into my life, always remember them now deceased. But they taught me what a balance sheet is, income statement, budget, and the importance of putting this together and finding the right people to work with you so we in turn can do a better job of serving the industry. While we were doing this, I did have the opportunity of speaking to producers, not only in the United States, several of the major hog producing states, but also in Manitoba, Canada, Ontario, Canada, Mexico, Chile, Brazil, also over in Europe. Here's this farm boy that grew up that Iowa was in a foreign country 18 miles away. I still say, "Marvin, you're still dreaming. Sometime you're going to have to wake up." This man came into my life completely unexpected. Being a nutritionist, I was asked to go to Manitoba, Winnipeg, to meet a producer that wanted me to put together a feeding program. I rode along with a producer from Beatrice, Nebraska, to take some purebred boars and leave at a station. He didn't want to pull a 35-foot gooseneck trailer that's mounted with pigs downtown Winnipeg. Can't imagine why. We stopped at a place called Crystal Spring. It was a Hutterite colony. We went into the shop, and here was this man called Jonathan. I'm very honored. Jonathan is with us tonight. What a man. He truly changed my direction of the company from being in the feed business to selling, of all things, a 304 stainless steel pig feeder. Together, we have introduced this feeder to all major producers in the United States, the different states, Mexico, South America. Today, there was a patent we had for 20 years that we defended with 17 different lawsuits to protect what we had. But then today, we're told that over 50% of all pig feeders today in the United States that are being sold is of this wet dry concept that Jonathan developed. 65%, I'm told, in Mexico, and 70% plus in South America, England, and Scotland. What an impact. This man had the vision of developing And then for some strange reason, he meets this crazy guy from Nebraska. Let me back up just a minute. Together, we really had the honor of helping so many people in the United States, Mexico, South America, and over in Europe. But we can't do it alone. We also need people from the financial institution to understand our objectives and our mission so that they can give us counsel on how much money we should borrow, could borrow, and or ideas of better investments. And these three people happen to be in Omaha, Nebraska. I tip my hat to them because they've been extremely important. And then, this lady called Jerry. I met she and her running mate Gretchen at a state convention. I learned that they had a mission of really helping kids. A passion of mine. I learned that they needed small things to help on the stage, to give presentations, and or some other smaller items. And at that time, we were able to help them, but not large. One day I met the executive secretary, not Jerry, not Gretchen, but it was the executive secretary of the FFA, South Dakota FFA, and they said, my officers get sick. It takes them 3-4 days at least to recover after they come back from the state fair. And I said, what is the problem? She said they get so much dust into their lungs taking care of these animals and petting a nursery building that it takes some time to recover. I said, I think I have an answer for you. We had a product that would take dust out of the air. But then, talking about relationships, I knew a lady called Sylvia Walters from Pipestone Systems, Pipestone, Minnesota. I shared with her a little bit about the vision. She said, do you think they would change their mission of a petting and a nursery building to educating the people in South Dakota? Where does their wholesome food come from? I said, I don't know, but I'll get you an audience. We met with Jerry and Gretchen and others that were involved with the state fair building that the FFA had. They decided this would be a good idea. I said, well, what will it take? It'll take probably a minimum of $80,000 or more to convert the building. Marvin, that's going to take at least 3-4 years to raise that kind of money. I looked at Gretchen, Jerry, and I said, no, if we're going to do it, we're going to do it now. September, we had the barn converted. We raised the money. We did it, and it's continuing to grow to educate people. Where does their wholesome food come from? And it's the talk of the whole state fair. Gotta visit the Ag Adventure Center. What an opportunity to help people. This gentleman has also honored me by being present tonight. One day when he was working with me, he said, Marvin, would you like to go to lunch with me? And I had no idea where we were going. We went to an Optimist meeting. And I was impressed with the fellowship and the camaraderie of this group of business people. 3 weeks later, they asked me to come back, and they were sponsoring the academic decathlon team from a high school there in Omaha. And these kids shared with us what it meant to be on the academic decathlon team. I was impressed. I go back to it and tell my wife, I said, I think I'd like to become an optimist. She said, what? How are you going to fit that into our schedule? Because we were working at least 12, 14 hours a day, at least 6 days a week. But I learned by going there in the fellowship of working with these people, of helping kids, tremendously rewarding. Al, I want to thank you. If any of you get a chance to visit with Alvin and some of his other colleagues that are here tonight, I'm very honored that all of them could come. Well, the motto here fits in with the FFA, bringing out the best in our youth, our community, and ourselves. And that last one is very important because it does happen. I challenge each of you to think each morning when you get up, give a smile to the first person that you meet. Make a difference in their life by reaching out and helping them. When I was president, after a couple of years of being into the Optimist organization, I met a person that had the vision of raising money to help families who have a child being treated for cancer who don't have enough money to pay their bills. The person that started this, he would always say, well, if we don't get this done this year, we can do it next year. I said, Tom, if we're going to do it, we need to do it now. Quit kicking the can down the road. These people need help. Going out the door, he said, Marvin, would you be co-chair? I'm packing a shirt with this lady that's been with me for 61 years, and she says, what? How are you going to do it? I turned to the person that introduced me to the Optimist organization and said, Al, would you be co-chair with me? He thought about it and he says, yeah, Marvin, I will. But we developed this from 20 to 30 people attending the organization, maybe raising $3,000 to $4,000 to, just before COVID hit, we had what we call the summer bash of raising $160,000. We had 430 or 460 people attend the event. What an impact this money has of helping these families that don't know where their next money is coming from to pay some bills. And it's grown way beyond me. Please, please, this is much bigger than one person. But then we didn't stop there. I learned of a fundraiser from the Iowa Optimist organization of planting flags in people's yards and charging them money for doing so. $35 a year, placing the flag in the yard, 5 major holidays. Started out with 1 flag. The next year was 13, the next year was 56. This last holiday, Labor Day, 667 flags were placed in at least 6 different subdivisions. This money, all of it, goes to help kids, families, so that they have a better life to live. I don't want to stop with this journey that I've been on without recognizing this lady. As I've traveled and I've met many, many people across the United States and foreign countries, this particular lady is your current FFA advisor and your ed teacher. And I've been watching, listening to what she's been accomplishing since she took over being your FFA ag advisor here. She truly is making a difference in the youth that have raised here in Beresford. Bridget, I tip my hand. I'm going to leave you with this thought. I challenge each of you. Don't be complacent. Think ahead. Think of what you can do to make a difference in somebody else's life. I'm very, very honored to be recognized by the committee that selects me. I still can't quite believe it, but I'm exceptionally proud to be part of this community, part of this group tonight, to say thank you.
Westell. Our next Hall of Fame inductee will be Mr. Paul Runyon. Paul Runyon embodies excellence in the fine arts pillar, not only for what he accomplished while at Beresford High School, but also because of his ability to share his gifts throughout his career. Mr. Runyon, thank you for inspiring me to follow my passions and for your service to our country. You have shared your gifts across the world while serving others through your volunteer efforts. Tonight, to share more about Mr. Paul Runyon is Mr. Robert Runyon.
Well, when Paul asked me to come up and say a few words and keep it as short as possible, I was thinking about, well, what are you going to say about this kid? I've known him now for 68 years. And we've kind of almost attached at the hip in a lot of ways. Being a year younger than me and the next grade lower, and following a lot of the same things throughout our careers. We both played tuba, we both painted, we both went into the municipal band and played. I stayed a couple of years and played with them, and we had some great times bringing myself and Paul and Connie Tornberg, a name from the past, to many rehearsals and band concerts throughout the seasons. And as I think back on these years of watching him grow, and I think about some of the things that we did. For instance, my senior year in high school, we played a medley of tuba trios with my oldest brother and my younger brother Paul and I. And we watched as our older brothers excelled in music and went on into college education, and the oldest brother continued in that line and became a music teacher, and my older brother Dan continues to this day to play his clarinet, and Paul continues to teach music, and to some extent I don't necessarily excel, but I keep working at it, and I sing with the American Legion men's chorus in Sioux Falls and the worship leader team in church. And the youngest brother still uses his music to this day also, and he plays in the bell choir at church and sings with his church choir. And one of the things that our parents tried to instill in us as we were growing up, the importance of academics and the importance of getting involved in something like music that you can take with you into your adult years and continue to use. And I am so grateful that Mom and Dad had that foresight and pushed us to go on to higher education and to worthy efforts in the area of music. And with that, Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Runyon. Mr. Paul Runyon, please come forward and receive your watchdog. To present the watchdog is Mrs. Jane Carlson from the Beresford Fine Arts.
Now, Marvin, I think I lead a very sedentary life compared to you. Really nice. I told you I thought I would enjoy listening to that tonight. So I'm going to try to make it quick. I am a tuba player. I like to be in the back. I always have, always do. And I will give you my thoughts. If it it goes over 6 minutes, I'll be shocked. So, here we go. It's just really an honor to be here tonight to accept this Watchdog Hall of Fame entry. But I want to talk real briefly about my time in Beresford. I needed some guidance, as we all do as we're growing, and who in Beresford, where do you get that? From your education system, of course, your teachers. And I'm very proud to say that already in the Hall of Fame, there are 6 teachers and coaches that I worked with during my time here, and Jane also was one of my classmates. So I'm very proud of that, that we had such a strong core to work with us then. Besides the traditional education, Beresford allowed me to be involved in both in music and in sports. I was able to play basketball. I was on the football team for 3 years. I was on the track team, and in the band and choir, of course. So there was quite an opportunity. One of the main things as I look back, what makes a difference? And here I would say it would be the band directors that we had. And by the way, I'm going to talk more about instrumental music education because of my background. I love all the different things that they did and learned a lot. But those band directors were key. Milo Winter, I had Milo Winter grades 5, 6, 7. Neil Jacobson, then I had Dave Mitchell for 3 years, and Denny Haig for my 4th year. And then in the middle of that, Diane Hofer, who was still in town, I know, came in as an assistant band director. So there probably wasn't hardly in the state of South Dakota a better string of band directors. It was just a great opportunity growing up in that situation. Highlights of my Beresford years, I think, are in the program. The 3 all-state bands, all-state chorus, things like that. We had some great march band results. The 1972, we went up to Winnipeg, Canada, and that was the best I had ever heard our band play. And thankfully, because we got a great recording out of that. And just tonight, Julie, you're here somewhere, aren't you? Julie Kennedy. Well, yeah, she's here. There's Julie, and she has a copy of that CD for me afterwards, and I plan to get that. And I just listened to it on, of all things, an LP. I would guess some of the kids probably don't even know what an LP is, but at least it's not an 8-track. That's beside the point. I'm going to talk just about 2 minutes roughly about being chosen for the McDonald's All-American Band. That's one thing that I get asked about fairly frequently. That band was sponsored by the McDonald's, and they took 2 from each state, and I'm glad that they picked the 2 player from Beresford, South Dakota. We had many great musicians in that group, played quite well. They actually bought a ringer in to play with us, and at the time there was a pop star named Bobby Benton. And a lot of you young kids wouldn't know, but Blue Velvet was one of his big songs. We played with him out in California. We also met and took a picture with Betty White, and it was good that we did because I didn't know how golden she was at the time. The trip to New York was my first airplane trip. And I had a bad cold, and no one had told me what happens when you go up. Rough start, and then on the way home, my flight was non-existent. And I had promised Coach Sorensen I'd be back for the game the next night. And boy, that was a panic feeling, but we made it. I wanted to mention a couple things along the lines with that McDonald's game. A couple things happened. My classmates took a collection and sent some money with me to New York. They wanted me to get something. You know, I don't remember exactly what I bought, but I do remember the fact that they did that for me. That I thought was pretty cool. Another thing that happened was the mayor of Beresford at the time was Wendell Ahrens, and surprise of all surprise, he met me on my return from New York. I was just so surprised, but it was very interesting. So I saw that it meant something here in Beresford. Another aspect of growing up in the Beresford band program is the size. We're a small school compared to municipal schools and that kind of thing. But we still had complete instrumentation, generally speaking. But what that meant was that some of our folks would have to maybe switch from flute to oboe to bassoon or a different instrument. And it was always remarkable that we had all those parts covered. And it was just wonderful to see. Building upon my experiences here, I went up the road and received a BA in music ed from Augustana College. Then went and taught 4 years in Western Springs, South Dakota as a junior senior high band director. And guess what? I used probably mostly things I had learned in Beresford in my teaching years out there. I took a little bit of a different direction then, went into the Air Force because we had a chance to play. Both my wife Robin and I joined the military, went to basic training together, went to Offutt Air Force Base together. She got out after 4 and spent the rest of her career teaching as a band director. And I spent the rest of my 30 years in the Air Force around the country, between Japan, Omaha, Nebraska for 15 years, Illinois, and Tokyo, Japan was the big one. But you know, I'm trying to think of something, talking to the audience here, why is Beresford important in that? And I'll tell you this, and that is, for me, going into the Air Force was child's play. Some of the things that they wanted to teach you right away were things you learned in the 5th grade band almost. Be prepared, be on time, be positive, take care of your instrument, practice parts individually, dress appropriately, wear your black socks. It was not a difficult concept for me, it was pretty easy. So, just a couple highlights of Air Force years. While stationed in Tokyo, I got the opportunity to send the band throughout the region. One of our trips down to Australia, for example, was a highlight in that it was the end of the 50th anniversary of the end of World War II. And obviously Australia and the United States were allies, and we went down and did a joint celebration with them. So that was kind of fun. During my assignment to Travis Air Force Base, I had the great honor of playing the interment ceremony for President Reagan. That was a very moving ceremony also. And then sending groups over to support our deployed troops was also a highlight. Even though I'm retired now, I'm still involved in music. I'm still in the choir, and I lead a brass group. We play in church. I don't play too much anymore. It's hard to get up here at this age. Yeah, after all, I am 21. So for tonight, I really want to say thank you to Jane. I know I worked with her, the superintendent, and all the people that made this possible. I think it's a great event for the city of Beresford. Speaks very highly of this group that you come together and do events like this. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Runyon. Dr. Shelley Kennedy earned her place in the Watchdog Hall of Fame because of her determination, competitive spirit, and high-energy performances on the court, track, and field. Dr. Kennedy inspires us to lead with determination and passion in all that we do. Dr. Kennedy's name remains on our Watchdog Track and Field Records Board and our girls' basketball archives. While records are meant to be broken, it seems like Dr. Kennedy's name could remain because she set the bar high. Tonight, to share more about Dr. Shelley Kennedy is Ms. Kathy Olson.
Good evening. I'm here to say a few words about Shelley being inducted into the Watchdog Hall of Fame. I was Shelley's track coach back in the day, and she truly was a competitor in track and in basketball. I do have to digress just a little bit. I was also the first track coach. We started track here in 1971. We ran on a cinder track. A lot of you know what that was. Some of you don't. The younger generation, they've got rubber tracks. They've got weight rooms. They've got tiny spikes. When you run on a cinder track, you have long spikes. And all of the girls, practically all of the girls on the basketball team were also on the track team. And we had lots of records starting in 1971. That was the first year, so every record was going to be broken. And we had relay teams. Shelley was on most of those. She ran the short races. She fought me on running a lot of the longer ones. Carl picked up the slack on that, along with Leslie and Mary Farley. She's here tonight. And her sister Shelley, they were Linda, not so much. The Shelley girls, the whole family, they all ran track. They were all good. And Sheila was there throwing the shot and the discus, and they were just a family. They've always been. And it progressed into the basketball team. They pretty much walked into the room tonight, and they're all in there, all talking, and it was like they hadn't missed a beat all these years. And Shelley's records were the one that lasted the longest. She ran the 100 meters in 12.3 seconds. She long jumped 17 3¾ inches. She was the point guard on the girls' basketball team for 3 years. First year, she scored 135 points. Second year, she more than doubled that with 353 and had 160 steals. She was scrappy. Her senior year, she helped lead her basketball team to 20-5 record, winning the district, the region, and placing third in the state. All 3 years, Shelley was on the all-conference Big 8 team. But Shelley was not only good in athletics. She excelled in the fine arts and music. She was in mixed chorus, honors choir, girls' glee with Grace Kennedy. She was in band. She played the French horn with Denny Haig. She was in Fiddler on the Roof, the play with Sharon Overton. She was also had the lead in the one-act play with Sharon Overton. And that was the first year, and they had that. She was also in FHA, FFA, the Kennel Club. I'm not sure when she slept, ate, or did her homework. But she was a member of the National Honor Society, too. After high school, she went to the University of South Dakota playing basketball and softball, later transferring to Mount Marty her junior year. She graduated from Mount Marty with a degree in health, physical education, recreation, and coaching. Later, she went back to school, becoming a doctor of chiropractic. Now, this is my story. Not sure Shelley would agree, but at one time, I believe it was a state track meet, she was in the long jump, and she hurt her back. And she came over to her folks who were sitting next to me, and she said, I gotta go to the chiropractor, my back is out. And her folks picked her up, took her to the chiropractor, she came back, and she jumped in the finals. She was determined, she always was determined. And I think this is what led her to becoming a doctor of chiropractic, which led her to Florida on an internship, and she's been there ever since. Retired now, she travels the country in her small RV. Finally, I do have to tell you that Shelley's biggest supporters were her parents, Glenn and Katie. And I'm sure tonight they are smiling because they were always very proud of her and had reason to be proud. Although Shelley has been in Florida since 1989, I think the biggest part of her heart has always been in South Dakota on a farm outside Beresford. Again, congratulations, Shelley, and go Watchdogs.
Thank you, Mrs. Olson. Dr. Shelley Kennedy, please come forward and receive your watchdog. To present the watchdog is Jill Mockler, president of the Beresford Athletic Booster Club.
Welcome, and thank you so much, Coach Capiels. Your words were very kind. It's great to be home, because no matter where I live, I do always will consider Beresford my home. First off, what I want to do is I want to do some congratulating. So, hey, how about those dogs? Yeah, how about them, right? So I'd like to congratulate all the members of the football team last night who beat the Philander Flyers. It was a great game. Well, I stayed for most of it, not all of it. Anyway, all right, moving on. I'd also would like to congratulate all the inductees into this year's Hall of Fame. I'm especially proud to have been part of the girls basketball team that has been inducted into the Hall of Fame as well. The team did an outstanding job for only having had basketball for 3 years. Next, I would like to thank Cortland Carnes, Brian Fields, and my brother Kevin for nominating me for this award. My brother couldn't be here tonight because he will be flying back here next month to receive an achievement award at Mount Martin College, but I do know he's here in spirit. A special thank you to the committee for thinking of me for this wonderful recognition. It is certainly one of the most meaningful and personal honors I've received, and I'm proud and flattered to be standing here in front of you tonight. Finally, I would like to thank Superintendent Dustin Dagan, all the teachers and coaches, Coach Olson, Coach Evanson, and support staff for your hard work and dedication to each and every student that has graced your presence. When I think back of the time I spent here in Beresford, it's always with fond memories and a good feeling. And growing up in this community had a profound effect on me in general. All that makes it even more special to have been chosen to receive this award. One thing I do know is that my parents are looking down with a huge smile and are very proud of their daughter tonight. Well, a lot has happened since I left Beresford High School. When I do look back on the last 4 decades or so, the main thing I must acknowledge is just how unbelievably lucky I personally have been to see so many of my dreams come true like they have, including becoming a chiropractic physician, running a marathon, going to Italy, riding a Harley Davidson and conquering the tail of the dragon in Robbinsville, North Carolina. And those of you who maybe do ride bikes know what I'm talking about, and if you don't, look it up. And driving with my partner Janet in a 37-foot RV with car and tow to be here tonight. And the list goes on, and I'm truly blessed. Any one of these things would have been beyond my wildest dreams when I was a little kid growing up in Beresford. The fact that they have all come true leaves me to waking up every morning feeling unbelievably fortunate and thankful. Sports, mainly my participation in track, had a lot to do with my career choice for becoming a chiropractor. Medical doctor was definitely out of the question because I didn't do blood and I didn't do needles. I was fortunate enough growing up with parents who believed in chiropractic care. It allowed me to be able to compete in events I loved and was good at. Many people have commented through the years about a special quality I had as an athlete and as a healer, which I would have to say came from being raised on a farm here in South Dakota with wonderful parents who never held me back. There was, however, a period in my life that I struggled with alcohol addiction. I grew up in a recovering family, so you would have thought I would understand the destruction this disease can do. There were times I felt like giving up, but I stayed the course and eventually realized that I was powerless and needed help. My last drink was August 15th, 1991. It was the best decision of my life. I tell this part of my story because without making that conscious decision, I may not be here tonight. I'd like to close tonight with a quote from Audrey Hepburn. "Nothing is impossible. The word itself says, I'm possible." Thank you so much for this honor, and I look forward to being home once again.
Thank you, Dr. Kennedy. Carla Rick-Duder earned her place in the Watchdog Hall of Fame because of her efforts on our basketball team. Carla would not only lead the team in scoring, but she would also be the team's leading rebounder. Carla was committed to the team's success. She led by example, and she was a tireless worker. She inspires us to put in the time and effort one needs to be successful. Tonight, to share more about Mrs. Carla Rick is her teammate, Mrs. Natalie Larson Johnson.
All right, good evening, everyone. So, what an honor it is to stand here tonight and tell you about Carla Rick and her accomplishments as a Beresford Watchdog. As stated in her bio, she was an athletic trailblazer for the Watchdogs, which means she was really good at everything she did. She was an outstanding basketball player, and this led our team to that third-place finish in the 1977 state meet tournament. She was known as our go-to player. If we needed to get it done, get the ball into Carla. In order to be a winner, you gotta have ability, and she had that ability. Her statistics support that. She dominated the sport in offense and defense. She could dribble, pivot, use the fake shot. She had skill in every aspect of the game. Perhaps Carla will share how she came to develop some of these skills. I have this vision that while most of us girls played with our dolls when we were young, Carla was out looking for a little scrimmage with the boys on the basketball court. Opponents tried to design a defense to defend her. I recall a game against Lennox. Coach Flynn played a triangle and 2 defense where they double-teamed Carla, 2-on-1 and 3-on-4. Those girls followed her wherever she was on the court. What stands out in my mind is after that game in the locker room, Coach Evanson shared with us that he asked Coach Flynn, "What would you have done if he had seated Carla in the bleachers?" Coach Flynn responded to that his 2 defenders would have been sitting right next to her. Another quality was her heart for the game. She was tough and she was a leader. She inspired her teammates with her competitive spirit and confidence in how she played the game. As I was surfing the internet looking for speech writing inspiration, I stumbled upon some inspirational quotes from various coaches and players, and I'd like to share a few of these quotes as I think they relate to describing Carla as a great basketball player. So, from NBA star Elena Del Don, "You cannot achieve unless you believe in yourself. You are more capable than you think." From NBA star Brianna Stewart, "Your passion and dedication can't be sometime, part-time, or spare time. It has to be all time." From former Team USA hockey coach Herb Brooks, you were born to be a player. You were meant to be here. This moment is yours. From former Indiana head coach Bobby Knight, coaches shouldn't have to push you to work hard. You should push yourself to work hard because you want to be a great player. From former UCLA coach John Wooden, it's not how big you are, it's how big you play. From WNBA star Elena Del Don, don't make excuses, make your free throws. From legendary Tennessee coach Pat Summitt, here's how I'm going to beat you. I'm going to outwork you. That's it. That's all there is to it. And finally, from NBA Hall of Famer Michael Jordan, some people want it to happen, some wish it would happen, others make it happen. To this day, Carla still has a love for basketball. I had the opportunity to spend some time with her and her husband Tim this last spring while attending the Summit League tournament. We had so much fun reminiscing about those good old days. It's been 45 years ago, but nothing gives me more pride than to be able to say that I played basketball on the same team with Carl Rick.
Thank you, Mrs. Johnson. Mrs. Carla Rick Duder, please come forward and receive your watchdog. To present the watchdog is Joe Mockler, president of the Beresford Athletic Booster Club.
Thanks, well, first of all, this was an unexpected surprise, and it's quite an honor. I'm just grateful that we got to get together, our team, our coaches. It has been a blast. This has been a real good weekend, and I'm really impressed how this has gone off. Seeing everybody, it's just been really fun. So, and thank you to Brian Field for nominating me. Like I said, this was just a surprise. I was not expecting this. So, but I do want to give a nod to Title IX. Excuse me. We're celebrating the 50th anniversary of Title IX, and it just seems fitting that our girls basketball team would be inducted this year. So without Title IX, I think, we didn't start till we were sophomores until we had to have extra girls sport going on. So, without Title IX, I wouldn't be here. Our girls basketball team wouldn't be here tonight. Shelley would still be here because none of us were as fast on the track as she was. She'd still be here. But anyway, it just goes to show, you don't really realize how excluded you are until you're included. And girls basketball, when they said there was a program coming on, it was like, just how's that going to be? Is it going to be like our PE classes? Is it going to be like an intramural game that we occasionally got to play? We just didn't know what a program would look like. And there were role models out there, women's basketball role models, but you just didn't see them. No TV coverage, very little newspaper coverage. So it was just, some of us weren't quite sure. And the day that we were having our very first trial, I was lounging on a lounge chair, drinking probably a tab, reading probably Lord of the Rings, and thinking, I'm not quite sure if I'm going to do this. And my mom came over and said, aren't you supposed to be heading to the gym for basketball tryouts? And I don't know. She's like, get that skinny butt off that lounge chair and get to the gym. And I'm so glad I did, because it just, exceeded my expectations. It was well run. We had great coaches. great teammates. You know, you learn so much from basketball and from team sports. But, you know, we got more than just basketball opportunities and athletic opportunities. We got to learn, you know, how to be leaders, how to mentor, how to team build, all these different skills that you get, and hopefully eventually good role models. So it was great. You know, we had great coaches, great fans. It was just the best of the years. And we had great community support. I still remember our first game. I believe it was El Point, I think. We had made 19 points that whole game. But we got there, and when we came out of the locker room, there were all these people in the bleachers. And it's like, whoa, look at all these people from Beresford came down to watch us play our very first game. And from then on, we had great community support all the way up to the very last game of the state tournament. So anyway, but I just want to say thank you, you know, for this weekend, for all the community support, and go Watch Dogs.
Thank you, Mrs. Duder. The 1977 girls basketball team belongs in the Watchdog Hall of Fame because they embarked on an entirely new adventure, provided inspiration to many, and acted as trailblazers for athletic equity. The 1977 girls basketball team excelled on the court. More so, the team was comprised of exceptional students who led by example. The 1977 girls basketball team inspires us because of their team commitment. Great things happen when a talented, hungry, and passionate group of individuals work together towards a common goal. Tonight, to share more about the 1977 girls basketball team is head coach Ed Evanson and players Mrs. Natalie Larson-Johnson and Mrs. Sheila Nelson-White.
Sheila. Those girls were hard act to follow, I'll tell you. If we could at this time, I'd like to have Coach Kathy Wilson come up here. And all the team members that are here in their 1977 team, they come up. Stand up. Two girls, stand up here. I don't think there's much in there, is there? There's one higher. You know, I rode in a parade the other day with these girls that were here, and I thought we were going to be kicked out. I really thought they were going to kick us out of the parade. They were being kind of naughty. So, anyway, I put down some notes. What am I going to do with these notes? I really don't know what to say. So I put down the notes, and if I mention your name tonight, girls, just step forward and then step back. It's not hard. Really. Okay. And we as a team would like to thank the Beresford Hall of Fame Committee for nominating and inducting this 1977 Beresford girls basketball team in the Beresford Hall of Fame. I'd also like to thank Court Carnes. He was the guy that helped get this program started back in 1975. And thank you to Natalie Larson for contacting everybody. Okay, I'd like to introduce the team, and you might know some of the parents' names if you don't know these kids. So we have Ann Dolan, Leslie Dolan, Marla Klostergaard, I know she's not here, Sharon Twite, Linda Farley, Sheila Nelson, Linda Carnes, Jan Amber's not here, Sharon Stussey's not here, Natalie Larson's here. Who am I leaving out? Shelley Kennedy and Carla Rick. I don't believe there's any student managers here and no cheerleaders, right? Oh, where's the cheerleaders? I want you up here too. Yeah, Tammy and Gail, come on up here. Tammy Anderson behind and Gail Larson up front. Now I'd like to take a little bit of time to congratulate Carla and Shelley for basketball and track. And I'd like to give you my impression of these two girls when they were in high school. Shelley played the point guard, and I do not ever remember anybody stealing the ball from her for 3 years. That was quite a feat. And I think you could dribble behind your back, too. She could dribble and control the ball with either hand. And like I said, she could dribble behind her back also. She was quick as a cat. Remember those days, Kelly, when you were quick? And she could break any press that was put on us, all by herself, if you had to. Carla Rick could do everything in basketball. He'd dribble, shoot, pass, screen, rebound, you name it, Carla could do it. I also knew Carla and Shelley were honor students in the classroom, and I'm sure some of the other girls were too, but I knew Carla and Shelley were honor students. And like I said, I had no idea what to talk about tonight. So is Jim Sorensen here by any chance? He's got quite a reputation for being up here. He comes up here, I heard he come up here at least 3 times in the last few years. And I asked him, I said, Sorny, what should I talk about? What'd you talk about? He says, tell a lot of stories and keep it very short. And then I found out Sorny went on and on and on. And I don't think Jim would tell me to do something that he wouldn't do himself. So, I know Jim was a tough act to follow. And he'd been here a lot of years and has a great name, a great reputation. And I'll try to do my best to follow Sorensen. Now I'd like to take you back about 45 years. You know, I thought about that. 45 years, how many days is that? That's like 16,000 days. That's a long time. The teams in our Big 8 conference back then were Beresford, Brandon Valley, Canton, Del Rapids, Elk Point, Flandreau, Lennox, and West Central. Those were all some pretty good-sized schools back in those days. The starting lineup for the Beresford 1977 basketball team is in alphabetical order. Here again, you have to step forward, girls. Glenda Garnes, Shelley Kennedy, Natalie Larson, Sheila Nelson, and Carla Rick. And I always say, how could you go wrong with a lineup like that? 3 of these girls, after 45 years, still have their name on the Beresford all-time top 10 list for different abilities. Natalie for rebounds, Carla Rick for rebounds and points, and Shelley Kennedy for the Beresford long jump and 100-meter dash. And I know Shelley was a member of a lot of other relay teams also. Most of the sophomores on this team, along with Sheila, were starters for next year's team. So we had a base to go on. The fall of 1975 was the first year for girls basketball in Beresford. Back then, many of the basketball rules were different than they are today. And here comes the first story someone was telling me about. There was no three-point line for shooting. Well, we had a girl on the team named Sheila Nelson who had a beautiful shot from the free throw line extended. She played the west side of the offense. And every time she shot and made a ball, if we would have went by today's standards, it would have been a 3 points. And I always said that when Sheila shot the ball, she had a beautiful arch on the ball. And I said, I hope that ball comes down by breakfast. Sheila would have scored many 3-pointers today. So thanks, Sheila. Another rule was different than it is today. That on every tied-out ball, we would have to jump. Today they have a possession clock. The referee just looks at it and says which way the ball will go. There was no shot clock, so we could take our time and shoot it if we wanted to, and we did a lot of the time. Our season was in the fall of the year, and if you know the temperatures out in South Dakota, especially this year, it gets pretty warm in those gymnasiums. And the girls had sweat clothes, but they usually didn't wear them because the gymnasiums were so warm. And every once in a while, the officials had to stop the game because the floor was getting too slippery. And they'd have to mop up certain areas of the floor, and then we'd continue the game. And did I mention there was no air conditioning in the gym at that time? All of our practices were held in the old gymnasium located in the elementary school. Beresford only had a freshman team, a sophomore team, and a varsity team. There was no elementary school teams. There was no junior high teams. And so when these girls came to play, as sophomores or freshmen, they had no background. Unless they played with their brothers or sisters or whatever. But they had to learn from point zero. So most of our practices was fundamentals. Every practice, I think we had a fundamental. I got another story to tell. Coach Olson taught physical education in the Beresford district from the time the girls on the team were in the 4th grade. She was very valuable as an assistant, not because of her basketball skills, but she knew these girls and their abilities and also their parents and their families, which was a great help to me. I had only been here a few years. Mrs. Olson and I have been working Natalie. Where's Natalie? We've been working her. We knew she had some height, she had some ability, but she didn't know how to shoot a jump shot. And we were going to have her playing it underneath the basket. So we wanted her to learn to get that ball above her head. So I looked over one day, we had some open shooting in our practices. So I looked over one day and there was Natalie. She had a ball over her head. There was a jump shot. I blew my whistle, I told the girls what was going on, and we made Natalie demonstrate that jump shot to us. She did, and we all applauded. So, thank you, Natalie. I should say that after Natalie learned to shoot that shot, the team just caught fire, and we started winning a lot of ball games. The team's record for the first year was 9 wins and 6 losses. Second year was 17 wins and 6 losses. Oh, I got time for another story here. Mrs. Olson.
Yes, Mr. Evanson.
Do you remember about 4 o'clock on October 20th, 1977, and I gave you a phone call? Why don't you tell them what that was about?
Well, that phone call was a surprise. Mr. Evanson was on the other end of the line and said, "Oh, hey, I can't make it to the game tonight with Del Rapids. You're in charge." Really? Yes, Sue is having a baby now, and I'm on my way to the hospital. Okay, thanks. Now I have a B team, and we haven't lost many games. And if you know Ed, he didn't like losing games. So I went to the game, it was at home. I went downstairs because I had coached all of the games that night. And I said, "Okay, girls, we gotta win." The B team went up, they did their job. I went back down afterwards and said to the seniors, "We can't lose this next game against Del Rapids or Ed will kill me." So of course, they did their job. They went out. I think the score was 48 Beresford, 26 Del Rapids. Go girls. It's hard not to call them girls because we were a family, and I haven't seen some of these girls in 46 years, and they're still great girls to me. There you go.
It's true. Okay. The third year, 1977-78, was a very exciting year for the Watchdogs. By the end of this year, the girls had won 3 district tournaments, 1 conference championship that we shared with Brandon Valley, 1 regional tournament, and placed 3rd in the South Dakota State girls basketball tournament held in here. Our record in this year, in this third year, was 20 wins and 5 losses. These girls had a 3-year total of 45 wins and 17 losses. And another story now. Our record was still here. Next story. In the third year after winning the district, we went to the Sioux Falls Arena to play in the regional tournament. We drew Irene for the first night. Irene had just knocked off Jefferson, who was a perennial favorite. In fact, I think they won the basketball tournament the last 2 years. They were tough. Irene, during the regular season, had beaten Watchdogs by 11 points. I believe our gals played the best game of the year that night. At halftime, we were down by 6 points. During our halftime talk, we asked Glenda Carnes. We asked Glenda Carnes to play 1.5 positions on defense. Remember that? Glenda was an excellent defensive player. She was really fast on her feet, and she hardly fouled. She didn't make many fouls. That was very important. Irene was killing us. We had a 1-2-2 defense, and Irene was just killing us in the corners. That's where our defense was weak. Let's see. During the second half, Glenda handled that position very, very well. And I think she was very instrumental, along with her teammates, that we won that game that night. During the last part of that game, Sheila Nelson took the shot. There was about 8 seconds left. Carla Rick rebounded at the free throw line and put the ball back up and in. And the buzzer sounded, and we're now in overtime. At the game break, I could hardly get a word in edgewise at the huddle. The girls were just so excited. You remember that, girls? At the game break, we decided to go into a four-corner offense. Irene fouled us many times trying to get the ball back. We made our many of our free throws. Irene had fouled out 2 or 3 other girls trying to get the ball back. And we ended up winning 45-44. The next night, we played Freeman for the championship. We beat Freeman, and we're now in the state tournament. The state tournament was held in December of 1977 in Huron. In the tournament, we won our first game by beating Ipswich. We lost our second game to Clear Lake. And we won our third game by beating New Underwood, achieving 3rd place for the Watchdog girls. At the state tournament, I have another story to tell, and we're just about done. One of our players, Ann Dolan, Ann went in for one of the players, and she shot the ball 3 times. It's the first time I've ever had a girl shoot 100% in a ball game. She made every one of the shots. And in conclusion, I'd like to say I'm very blessed to be part of this team. It was a very good year, and thanks, girls. Oh my goodness, something's going on I don't know about.
Okay, we'll keep this short. I'm going to cut out some of what I was going to say because he already covered it. But I just do remember 47 years ago, the summer of 1975, sitting in the bleachers of that old gym for sophomore orientation. And we were told then that girls basketball would now be an official sport at Beresford High School. And I remember Coach Evanson being introduced, and he was standing there over in front of the lunch window. And you girls remember our response when we saw him the first time? Come on, help me out. We thought he was hot. Glenda made me say that. But anyway, we were told when and where to report for tryouts, and I don't know about the rest of all you guys, but yeah, the butterflies have kicked in. Do I try out? Do I not try out? I mean, this was brand new to us. So anyway, getting started with Coach Evanson, and what a challenge it must have been for him to have started the basketball program from scratch. He didn't know us, and we didn't know him, and he was expected to whip us all into shape and learn plays and be prepared to play basketball in just a few short weeks. But here's the deal. He had a secret weapon. She had been with us. She was our PE teacher for years, so she knew all of us from when we were quite young. And so anyway, I'm not going to repeat all that. So anyway, our accomplishments were not something that we did alone. There are many people, many others who deserve to share in our word tonight. And let's not forget our team managers, and I don't think any of them are here, former or present or at the time. But Tracy Hofer and Ruth Kennedy were with us the year that we went to state. and they, along with other managers that we had previous to them, were the best at what they did and probably never got the credit that they deserved. And we had the best supportive fans ever, who were led by 4 of the best cheerleaders ever at BHS. Janelle Strand, Robin Lindblom, Tammy Anderson, and Gail Larson. What the name of that cheer was? These 4 girls had a cheer, and Gail and Janelle would do the splits this way, and Robin and Tammy would do the straddles, and if you don't know what that is, you do the splits this way. Would you girls like to demonstrate? Just give it a shot. But that would charge the crowd. I mean, they did that several times during the game, and we always knew they were doing it because the fans just loved it. And then there's our families and our parents, and that we sacrifice so much. Their blessings and their constant support. There are not enough words to express how thankful we are to them for everything they did for us back then. And in my household, emotions always ran high on game day. And if my uniform wasn't clean and ready to go when I got home from school, I would scold my mom. So I'm sorry, Mom. And can you imagine what it was like for them to be the parents sitting in the bleachers when we were playing? And I believe they were more nervous than we were. My mom's going to kill me for sharing this story. So I was texting her, and she says, telling her about that I was going to write a couple speeches for tonight's ceremony. And her response was, big job. You can tell them I had to pee every 10 minutes when you played. Never happened before or since. And I responded, you've never told me that before. And I said, I bet you had to pee more often than that when my brother Keith played. And her response was, no, I was used to almost anything by then. By the time he came along, it was more like a heart attack. So anyway, on a closing note, just want to say thank you to each and everyone who helped get us here tonight. And it's a great honor to be able to say we've been inducted into the Watchdog Hall of Fame.
Little did I know when I said I do this that there'd be this many people here. So mine is really short. To the players, cheerleaders, coaches, managers of 1977 basketball, congrats. And to the other inductees. You were a tuba player? I was a tuba player. And so was my sister. And we played under Mr. Haig and Mr. Holford too. And those were good days. When you brought that up, it just made me think of that. And special thanks to Shelley and Carla. It was a blast playing with you guys because we always got to win. And I am so honored to be here. Wow, 45 years ago, it's hard to believe. And if you know my husband, that's how long we've been together too, 45 years. I thought I'd talk a little bit about my family because basketball was a big part of our family. Our daughter was in volleyball. She went 4 years and she went off to college to get her degree, and she's a nurse practitioner. Our 2 sons, little did we know, well, first of all, we don't know where Whitney got that smarts because they weren't stuck, right? Or that smart. Chad and Mitch, they were 2 years apart, and little did we know they were going to grow up to be 6'7" and 6'6". And to see Scott, how tall Scott and I are, we just look up to him like that. Anyway, Chad went to college at SDSU, played for the Jacks. Mitch went and played for the Wolves at Northern. And that's all we did, was go to basketball games. It was the highlight of our lives. We miss it. And I'm not sure why I went out for basketball. I was a freshman. I was getting in a lot of trouble in my junior high years. And for some reason, I went out for basketball. And it turned my life around. It was so good for me to be on that team. It gave me the much needed self-esteem I needed in my high school years. I was part of a team. You all accepted me and liked me, and that was so important to me that it was great. And I don't know if you remember, was I the one that came up and said, what's offense and defense? I think I did. Because I didn't know. I didn't know how to dribble a ball, or I didn't know what a free throw shot was. I really didn't. So I came along a long way. And I just want to thank you ladies from the bottom of my heart. You really did make a difference in my life. And I think Carla has something to give to the coaches. Thank you. One more difference between now and then as far as basketball. We had to play with the large basketball. Had we had the small basketball that everyone else play with now, Shelley would have been in the Hall of Fame for ball handling. All of that scoring records, yeah. So that was one. Yeah, you still have So anyway, we just got these guys just very small toys right here of appreciation. I mean, thank you. It's not the watch.
Thank you, Coach Evanson, Mrs. Olson, Mrs. Johnson, and Mrs. White. At this time, Coach Evanson, all players, managers, and cheerleaders in attendance will receive their team award. To present the watchdog is Jill Muckler, President of the Beresford Athletic Booster Club. Thank you, Coach Evanson, and the players from the 1977 team. Mr. Brian Field enters the Watchdog Hall of Fame in the Distinguished Service color. Because of his leadership, Mr. Field bleeds purple and white. Not only did he graduate from Beresford High School in 1983, but also he later led the district as principal and superintendent. His devotion to the district featured kindness, compassion, purposeful communication, personal sacrifices, respect for all, and a love for all things Beresford. Tonight, to share more about Mr. Brian Field is Mr. Jared Olson.
All right, welcome. It's a pleasure to be here tonight and have an opportunity to speak briefly about Brian and his induction into the Watchdog Hall of Fame. I came across a quote recently. I was at a conference and the speaker put this up. It's something from Jerry Seinfeld that maybe a few can relate with tonight. It says, according to most studies, people's number one fear is public speaking. Number two is death. Death is number two. This means to the average person, if you go to a funeral, you're better off in the casket than you in the eulogy. Now, I've had the pleasure of speaking about Brian a few times in the past. Brian, after tonight, there's really only one big one left. Let's hope I get this one right. Read off a few names and see if you recognize any similarities here. Brian Field, Roger Staubach, Tony Dorsett, Troy Aikman, Emmett Smith. Yep, after tonight, they're all Hall of Fame inductees. More unique about that, they're also all first ballot Hall of Famers. What's it mean to be a first ballot Hall of Famer? What's special about this distinction? What did the Distinguished Service Pillar Nominating Committee and the Steering Committee see that they unanimously selected Brian Field in his first year of eligibility to the Hall of Fame? Well, with those others, it's a lot of statistics. Staubach, 22,700 passing yards, 153 touchdown passes. Dorsett, 3,554 receiving yards, 398 receptions, 12,739 rushing yards, 91 total touchdowns. Aikman, 32,942 passing yards, 165 touchdowns. Emmitt Smith, 18,355 rushing yards, 164 rushing touchdowns. So what was it about Brian Field's resume that landed him in the Watchdog Hall of Fame in his first year of eligibility? We all know Coach Heron didn't throw the ball more than a couple times a game, so it certainly wasn't his receiving yards or touchdowns. Actually, I remember when Brian was announced as the new principal in Beresford in the early 2000s. I was a first-year teacher in Beresford, and the veteran staff members, Ed Evanson included, were in the workroom and assured me as a young teacher, we're in good hands. But they also quickly told me he wasn't the athlete that Brad and Nicole were. So I knew years ago Brian wasn't the greatest athlete to ever play Beresford High. So what was it? How did Brian earn his spot in the Hall? Over the past 20 years, I've run into people from different towns, different schools. And when they learn I'm from Beresford, they often reference Brian Field and ask if I know him. I let them know that I do, and their first response is almost always, what a great guy. When I turn to work, I let Brian know that I ran into so-and-so, and Brian would, of course, remember them and say something like this. Yeah, I coached him in kids' baseball. Or, I coached his younger or older brother in baseball. Or, I coached her brothers in baseball. Not always, but many times a connection would run into tied back to some way that Brian was involved in youth baseball in Beresford. Brian coached the 7 to 16-year-old baseball for many years in Beresford, was also involved in the amateur team. When Brian took his first teaching and coaching job in Arlington, he coached the 7 to 18-year-olds boys baseball team in Arlington, and he was also involved in starting the Arlington amateur baseball team. Now, as any coach knows, you're only as good as your athletes. And this was well before name, image, and likeness were tools to bring in top talent. Well, Brian couldn't offer NIL deals to recruits. Now he probably did have some cold beer in the trunk of his Monte Carlo after the game. This is amateur ball, of course, we're talking about. So what did Brian do to field an amateur team? Well, he and a buddy set off for Brookings and planned to attend a college house party to recruit some jackrabbit pitchers. Brian and his teaching buddy walked into their first house party, and what do they see? Yep, a bunch of their high school athletes from Arlington at the college house party jumping out the windows trying to not get caught with alcohol. Brian has a lot of good stories about teaching and coaching in Arlington. He thinks he one time set a record for the most games coached in an evening. I don't remember all the details of what happened to the other coaches, but he ended up coaching 5 games in one night. He coached the 7th grade, then the 8th grade, then the C team, the JV, and he wrapped it up with a varsity game. After his time in Arlington, Brian moved on to Freeman to start his administrative career as the principal and activities director. He continued to coach in Freeman and again created a lot of good memories. I often talk about Brian's fairly strict 2-beer rule. Aaron, how many's he had tonight? 0. He's saving those 2 for after this. He rarely has more than 2 drinks in an evening, but it kept him going for a 3rd or 4th drink some evening, pull up a chair and let the stories begin, and the Freeman Don Hotchkiss stories are some of my favorites. I want to tell you something about principals, school principals. They have money. No, they're not rich, but they have enough money they don't need a coach to pay the bills. Let me tell you something else about principals and activities directors. The thing they don't have a lot of is time. So if he didn't have a lot of time, and he was giving up the coaching and it wasn't for the pay, and he didn't need the money, why did he do it? Well, it wasn't about money for Brian. It was his calling to get back to the community and the kids. That's where his heart was. Now, Brian moved back to Beresford again, spent some time, his available time coaching the kids. Same situation as Freeman. He didn't need the money. He wasn't bored. He wasn't just looking for something to fill his time. It was his calling to serve kids through areas of passion like running that made those couple hours each day worth it. If you go somewhere in the public with Brian, you better be prepared to run into some former student athletes Spent a little time talking about the old days and catching up where those kids are at now as young adults. Now I'll admit, one day Brian came into my office. It was one of those cup half full days for me. Brian closed the door, leaned back against the counter, and told me, we're going to start a foundation. I immediately shot the idea down and told him it wasn't going to work. He grinned, gave me one of those regular quotes, "We'll see," was his line. And he walked out of my office. Through the early years of the foundation, I thought I was maybe right. This thing wasn't going anywhere. But campaign after campaign, he and the board rolled out football tailgate pork loin feed after football tailgate pork loin feed, where Brian was in the kitchen washing dishes well after the football game was over. And the last one to leave the school that night, we would count the $800 or $1,000, maybe on a good year, $1,400 they would raise, and he'd send it off to the foundation to be invested. I can't even begin to describe the hours Brian and his faithful board members have put into meetings and events, but it's my pleasure to acknowledge Brian was right. He was going to start a foundation and was going to be successful. Today, that Watchdog Foundation has over $180,000. It helps fund technology in classrooms, staff development for English language learners, among many other initiatives and opportunities for kids and staff. Brian, great work. Well, I was pessimistic when you first told me. I deeply knew down that you would see it through, because that's what you have always done, gone above and beyond to serve the community. Now, I'm not good at asking people to part with their money. It's just not a skill that I have. But as a school business manager, there's one thing that I'm good at. It's cashing checks. So if you ever find yourself in the fortunate position and have a few dollars and needs a good home, send it to the Beresford School, put a note on there that it's for the foundation, and I'll make sure it gets where it belongs. Now, prior to Brian's retirement from the Beresford School, he and a few other key players got things rolling on the Watchdog Alumni Association. While Brian wasn't able to see this project 100% through, the framework is there for the next set of servants. Brian served on a number of boards and committees over his years of work. I'd like to touch on one in particular and sprinkle in a few others. Brian was a key member of the Frostbite 4, which is South Dakota's premier winter road race. Such a successful event. Brian's attention to detail, relentless work ethic, and commitment to seeing it through made him a key team member for the other race committee members to work with. I witnessed Brian spend hours and hours leading up to race day getting all the little details put together, so race day was a success. I also witnessed him as one of the first people to arrive on race morning to set up, much like the pork loin tailgate feed. Brian was one of the last to leave when the race was over. He made sure everything was put away, wiped up, garbage is hauled out to the dumpster, etc. His work ethic and commitment to an event was second to none. I would often ask in the office what Brian had planned for the upcoming weekend. You know, thinking maybe he would get away or have something planned that wasn't tied to the school or the community. Typical answer from Brian was something like this: I'm helping at the duathlon. I'm officiating the youth basketball tournament. I'm working the PRC summer road race. It's the Lions Club craft fair and I'm helping direct traffic. I have the Lions soup supper. Or it might be as simple as I'm watching Tyler's dog. Might have even been something as simple as a boy struggling at home and in school who spent a lot of emotional hours in Brian's office. Had asked him to play golf that weekend, and Brian, of course, made the time to do it for him. Serving others isn't easy, and Brian acknowledged as much during his retirement speech. A lot of personal sacrifices are made to embark on the journey that he's taken. He gave what he could to the Arlington, Freeman, and Beresford communities, and on behalf of all those communities, we tonight recognize him. All right, where did all those ladies in the 1977 girls basketball team end up? Out there somewhere? Okay, you're up over here. Now, I know what you were thinking about now, and I am almost done here. See, what the rest of you don't know is these ladies want me to get off the stage so we can finally bring up the eye candy that is Brian Field. Soon enough, ladies, soon enough. Before we bring him up, let's stop and look around for a minute. Go ahead, take a minute, look around. What a great meal. Amazing program. The stage, fancy lighting, beautiful decorated tables, nice audio, picture slideshows, Watchdog trophies, friends and family sitting around the same table, and most importantly, people's stories are being told and shared. I was fortunate to watch Natalie Sarda and Mara McGill compete during my years in Beresford. I've heard the stories in the staff workroom about Keith Larson playing sports, and I was fortunate to work with Sharon Olberson, Jane Carlson, Jim Babb, Jim Sorensen, and Ken Bonte. But what about the other stories? How was I ever to know about the journeys of people like Luke Nordquist, Peter Larson, Roger Price, Grace Kennedy, Joseph Thorne, Helen Grace, one of my favorites, Scott Latondres, took to be great at what they do. Without one person stepping forward, I wouldn't know about these other stories. Brian's going to get up here and probably tell us, yeah, it took a team and all this and that, and events like this aren't possible without partners like the Booster Club and the Beresford Area Arts and the Watchdog Foundation and the staff of the Beresford School. But the reality is that none of this would be possible or happening tonight if it wasn't for one person. Make it one of his goals with the school board members and work tirelessly to see it through. Now, a pundit in the room might say, well, as superintendent, that's what we paid him for. The reality is, it isn't. And you'll have to look long and hard to find a school or community in South Dakota who puts an evening together like you're enjoying tonight to recognize the accomplishments of others, and we all have Brian Field to thank for that this evening. A while back, my mother-in-law gave me a biography to read. It's technically called a memoir. Biography, memoir, whatever. One cold day, I opened it up and started reading. As I worked through the chapters, members of the administrative team really came to mind. I thought, this chapter reminds me of Jeff Gross, and this one reminds me of Troy James, and this one, Dustin Dagan. The themes of the memoir connect with members of the administrative team so much that I bought each member of the team a copy of the book. Inside the front cover, I wrote a short note about what chapter or theme reminded me of them. I had them all done except Brian's copy. There wasn't a chapter that I told myself, that's Brian Field. I thought about it a little bit and realized Brian wasn't one chapter. He was the entire book. This memoir was about hard work, service to others, remembering where you come from and how your parents and grandparents lived and treated others. It was about looking back and being proud of where you come from, where you lived, and what you do and how you go about doing it. Now, on the inside of Brian's book, I wrote something about the pride his parents must have for what he's done with his life. Larry and Janice, A+. Great job. Ladies and gentlemen, first ballot Hall of Famer, Sir Brian Field.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Mr. Brian Field, please come forward and receive your watchdog. To present the watchdog is Dustin Dagan from the Beresford School District.
Thank you very much, Jared, for those very kind words and for sharing some information on me tonight, maybe too much information. But thank you again so much. That was very well done, and thank you so much. It's an honor to have you speak for me. Thank you to the Watchdog Hall of Fame Steering Committee and subcommittees for the work, and its founding partners, the Beresford School District, the Watchdog Foundation, the Beresford Area Arts, and the Beresford Athletic Booster Club. For their continuing support and sponsoring the Watchdog Hall of Fame event during our homecoming weekend. Thank you so much to the Beresford administrative team. There's a lot of work that goes into this, and I want to thank the support staff, Beresford Arts, and all the other groups too that help make this event possible. Their work and their organization on making this a very special evening for the inductees and their families is something truly amazing to our school and to our community. Congratulations to all of the inductees this evening, and especially that 1977 girls basketball team. I was a 7th grader when I traveled to Huron and got to see you play Ipswich in that first round game, and that was a special memory that I had. That was just awesome. Also, I think Coach Evanson might have left out a story from that year too, and I don't even know if some of his players know, but Mr. Evanson, weren't you the bus driver for that state tournament too? And wasn't there an announcement during that game that said, Beresford bus driver, your bus is illegally parked, you need to move it now. And I believe Coach Evanson hears that, and he's the bus driver, but it's right about before game time, correct? So he sneaks out the back door of the Huron Civic Arena, and he moves the bus right before the game is to start. It was against Ipswich, I think, your first one, right? And then he decides, did you leave something in the door to get back in, or they wouldn't let you back in, is that correct? I'm the Beresford bus driver, but I'm also the girls' basketball coach. And they wouldn't let you in for a little bit. And then what happened? So he eventually got in anyway, but that was just another funny story. And a lot of us that coached are also bus drivers too, so, and I still do that today. But anyway, I'd like to recognize and thank my family members and friends who are present this evening. My parents, Larry and Janice, my sister Nicole and her daughter Erin, my brother Brad and his wife Joan, my cousin Scott and his wife Ann, a great family friend Ken, my niece Jennifer, my great niece Aubriana, nephew Tyler are unable to make it this evening, but I've greatly appreciated the support of my family, friends, and colleagues over the years. Our family moved to Beresford in December of 1975 when I was a 5th grader. I was extremely blessed, and I'm very thankful for the academic and co-curricular opportunities that I was provided as a student in the Beresford School District. There is no doubt that I received a well-rounded education from some outstanding teachers, coaches, directors, and administrators. Many who have been already inducted into the Hall of Fame and others who will be very soon. I was blessed during my education career to work all in South Dakota for 34 years as a teacher, coach, activities director, high school principal, and superintendent with roots in Arlington, Freeman, Watertown, and Beresford. As an alum of Beresford High School, I was so excited when I was provided an opportunity to return to the Beresford School District and community in 2002 when I was hired to be the high school principal. At that time, I was very fortunate to work alongside many of my past teachers and coaches, and some are here this evening, that served as positive role models and mentors for me. I was blessed to be an administrator in the Beresford School District for 17 years, 3 as a high school principal and 14 as a superintendent. As a principal and superintendent, you're only as effective as the people that work alongside you. In the words of Jim Collins in Good to Great, we always strive to get the right people on the bus. In education, it's all about building and sustaining positive relationships. I was fortunate to work with an outstanding administrative team that included elementary principals, Mr. Kevin Nelson and Mr. Troy James, middle school principals, Mr. Mike Limmer and Mr. Tim Kaler, high school principals, Mr. Scott Lepke, Dr. Dustin Dagan, and Mr. Jeff Gross, and business managers, Mrs. Norma Brunick and Mr. Jared Olson. I was blessed with an outstanding administrative team during my 14 years as a superintendent of Beresford Schools. As the famous proverb states, it takes a village to raise a child. An entire community of people must provide for and interact positively with children for those children to experience and grow in a safe and healthy environment. I was so fortunate to work with some outstanding teachers and support staff members that provided that type of environment in our schools for our children. I would like to thank the teachers, support staff members, administrative team, and school board members for their leadership, support, and friendships, and for always placing students first. During my 14 years as superintendent, I was very fortunate to work alongside very supportive and outstanding school boards and 2 tremendous school board presidents, Mrs. Sue Christensen and Mrs. Deb Berglund, who are here this evening. I was blessed with great school boards, and I'll always be thankful for that. And I would like to thank them for their leadership in our school district as well. I would also like to thank my very loyal administrative assistants, Cheryl Peterson, who was my admin assistant during my 3 years as the high school principal, and Rhonda Peterson, who I was fortunate to work alongside for 14 years during my time as superintendent. Rhonda has been the heart and soul of the Beresford School District for 40 years. During her career at Beresford Schools, she has worked alongside and outlasted 6 superintendents and 5 business managers, and that is truly a remarkable feat. So I owe a lot to Rhonda as well, so thank you. I have so many fond memories in education that I'll cherish forever. I would like to thank the outstanding students, families, teachers, support staff, administrators, school boards, and community of Beresford that I was blessed to work with during my 17 years as an administrator in the Beresford School District. I will always take great pride in being a Beresford Watchdog. Thank you so much for this wonderful Watchdog Hall of Fame honor.
Thank you, Mr. Field. I'd like to invite Dr. Dagan back to the stage for his closing remarks.
for joining us for our 5th Watchdog Hall of Fame event. To help this tradition continue, we do need your help. We would love for you to think about individuals or teams that have embodied greatness or embody excellence today. Within your program, you will find a sample nomination form. Please consider taking a few moments in the weeks or months ahead to complete and submit your nominations to the Beresford School District. I'd also like to take a moment to thank the following partner groups for their efforts to help make this happen: the Beresford Athletic Booster Club, the Beresford Area Arts, the Watchdog Foundation, and the Beresford School District. After this is done, after we play our school song, I encourage you to stay, enjoy us for a social at the Bridges, and we'd also look to get some additional photographs with our Hall of Fame inductees at our Beresford backdrop. To end our evening, we would ask that you please stand as we play our school song.